everyone. This is Neelam Patak here, and I'm the founder and CEO for WIMA, which is Women in Manufacturing and Allied Industry. As a part of the WIMA skilling session, every month we try to have the session, one on the technical and one on the leadership and the soft skilling side. Today, we are coming with the leadership session. We have two people, I should say, two major personalities with us. And surely I'm going to have an introduction of them. But before that, the purpose of BIMA, as we said that we would like to have more and more women as a part of the manufacturing workforce participation in the manufacturing. At WIMA, we are looking at a target or a vision to have at least 1 million women impacted and being a part of the manufacturing by 2030. And in the same purpose, we are working with the organizations, we are working with individuals, professionals, students, so that we make this industry as an aspirational industry for the people to join. Now, surely we do it through skilling, we do it through mentoring, through employability support, and many others. And in the same purpose, today we have, as a part of our skilling session, and we have Sylvia, as well as we have Shantha. I know, introducing them in such a brief time will not be justified, but I will try to put what all experiences they hold in. And we are going to have a discussion, sort of what we have received as the questions from our viewers. And this is where we are going to talk on how we can fast track more women in the boardrooms. And this is, I believe, the people who are going to watch it or who are watching us today. If you have any question, please put it up in the chat. We will be taking this question during our conversations. We have also received few questions at the time of registrations. We will also be taking those questions. So, introducing Sylvia, she is the founder of Divershefy, a global platform advancing women leadership and board diversity. With over 30 years of experience in finance, business strategy, and executive consulting, she has been instrumental in shaping governance practices that strengthen board effectiveness and resilience. Sylvia is widely recognized for her ability to curate high impact leadership dialogues and for driving systematic change that embeds diversity at a cornerstone of sound corporate governance. Through Diversify, she champions inclusive board as a strategic imperative for sustainable growth and organizational integrity. Welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you
In
for
the chat.
having me.
Thank you. And let me introduce our other guest as well, Shantha Maheswari. She is a seasoned global business technology CXO leader with over 30 years of experience driving business strategy, purposeful leadership, and innovation. She has held senior roles shaping Fortune 2000 client transformations, particularly in area of smart manufacturing, supply chain, warehouse, and freight logistic optimization, digital transformations, digital platforms, go-to-market and corporate strategy, governance, and board advisory across industry. You name it, and they have the experiences on their resumes. Shanta is a certified independent director from the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs and holds credentials in board leadership. Recognized with multiple awards for inclusion, diversity, and technology leadership, she brings deep expertise in aligning governance with resilience, accountability, and sustainability growth. So, welcome, Shanta, in this discussion. Very happy to have both of you. So, together here in this room, we are sitting with more than 80 years of experiences across, and that's where we are going to have this discussion. So, uh, maybe do you guys like to have any additional introduction to what I have added, or any brief on
We are
that?
good. We are
That's
good.
all right. So,
We are good, and I do like the vision that you started off with on the Vima Neelam. So wonderful to see that vision. So absolutely rooting for that. Okay, so we will do everything to be part of this rally, be part of this movement. So yeah, let's do it more together.
Thank you. So, while I was, before this discussion, I was also trying to look onto some of the numbers that women in the board across the industry, across the globe, and in India. So, yes, nowadays, as we know, as a board, there is a mandate to have women representation. So, across the globe, there is around 28% of the women who represent in the globe. In India, it is around 17 to 18%. And I know most of the introduction has also come because there is a mandate which has come by the government. But if you see the CEOs, only 5 to 6% are the CEOs. So that means although there is a representation, but the executive power is still less. Now, that is where I go to you, Sylvia, first. You have been, and you have been, there is an instrumental, like there are women that you has been trained that has taken up the board positions through the Diversify programs. So what are some of the key barriers which are actually preventing women to reach the boardrooms? Because when we are seeing the numbers are not justifying the people, the women they're there, and the so across, you've been talking to those women, them. So what exactly have been barriers? And in fact, this is one of the questions which has been also asked by our one of the people who has registered for this session. So would you like to focus something onto that?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me, and I'm really happy to be here again. It's been the second time that I'm with WIMA, and happy to support your mission, which is really wonderful. So the key barriers is actually something I'm really working with a lot of women on. Let's start with the network. As we all know, that it's still an old boys club for board positions. Usually, board positions come through the network. So you need to know people who are on the board in order to get onto a board. And here is where women unfortunately still have a disadvantage, not being part of major networks that are uh, giving them the opportunity to be named or to be suggested for boards. So one of the things I always recommend to the women in my network, in the Divershefy network, is make sure you join networks and specifically also in-person events where you can meet other board members so you can get introduced into those cycles. And for example, Shantha is also part of the board stewardship, which is one of the platforms I'm suggesting to women because they have in-person events with board directors. And it's really a good idea to join those if you want to be known in the circles that you are interested in board roles. So this is one of the things I think is a major key kind of component to be successful. Also, visibility, which is part of that, really, being visible and letting people know that you want to be on a board because nobody can guess that you want to be, right? So you have to tell it. You actually have to say it. You have to tell people, you have to write to people, you have to tell them, I'm interested in being on boards. The third thing is, you have to be willing to put in the work to actually be ready to be on a board. We all have qualifications. So many women I know, over 2,000 women, super qualified in India. Okay, it's not a qualification per se, but there's other kind of preparation you need to do. Writing your board resume, being clear on how to do the research on a board if you want to join a board. There's so many other components, board politics that you need to learn about. And I also recommend, and as you said, Shantha has that done, the independent director test in India, MCA test, is very important to do. If you're serious about getting on a board, this is one of the first things I would do. And after that, you can take up all the other things. But the test itself is not enough to give you a board role. Okay, so this is just the step one. And then the step two is to get into up your visibility. And another thing is, one thing that I think is more of the easier things to work on is actually your confidence to say, I can do it, which is another component because there are women who are super qualified who still have this nagging feeling, am I really good enough? Is this really something I can do? I've never been on a board. How can I potentially get there? So this is another thing that we help women, overcome the imposter syndrome. There are ways to, improve your confidence, obviously, including mentors. We have board and C-level mentors that can help you kind of work on that part as well. So these are, I think, the four things I would really strongly advise to consider.
Thank you, Sylvia. So I took up three things. So one is on the network, second is on the visibility, third is on the confidence, and fourth is on the mentorship that I understood that the crux of your discussion. Now coming on to the same, mentorship is the part that you touched up. And I also believe while I believe all of us has gone through a phase where we needed some mentor to guide us, to help us onto that. And that is exactly where I am coming to you, Shanta. That if I have to ask you, and you must be mentoring a lot of women and the others and men as well, both. So what role do mentors and sponsors play in reaching to the senior leadership position? Because many a times, I have seen that many women, they don't approach. Like, I really liked Sylvia when she said you have to create your visibility. You have to tell people that I am interested to reach to that position. Many times we don't do that, and that is exactly I wanted to understand how mentors can help in that, and also what women should be doing in this. There are many women who are listening to our discussion today. This will go as a reminder to them that we have to tell. We have to keep on telling in the system where we are. So, wanted to understand your views on this, Shanta.
So I think, so first of all, Sylvia put it very nicely. So just building on from what she said, right? I think the first of all, mentors and sponsors, I think, play very crucial role. You're a man or a woman in a career journey. I think it plays an extremely crucial role. Now, I would even go for women. I think maybe one more step I would say, which is more on sponsor in particular, because I think particularly women in manufacturing, women in any leadership role, I think it requires that sponsor to really speak up for you in absence of you, while of course everybody is available for every other role. I think it's extremely important. One. Second, also not to make any bias about you. I think it happened to me once that, like, there was a particular role which kind of was being discussed in a room, and I'm actually very much in the room, by the way. Coincidentally, I'm in the room, and people are talking, and they're talking about this role and things like that, and they're talking about all the names, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Somebody like Shanta is here in the room, and then there was a discussion that, no, Shanta, you know what? This requires like extensive travels, and there are a lot of business events, and there are so many others and so many. Yeah, but why would you make a decision for me? You got to ask me that question, or I should say no. One of the two should happen, right? So I think, one, sponsors play a very crucial role. So I would strongly recommend, go actively identify a sponsor. If you don't know where to start, I think it is good to start talking to your immediate manager or a leader with whom you're working, and really figure out who is a sponsor who can really be there, who is your well wisher, somebody who thinks of you in you being there, in you not being there also, and somebody who is in a good influencing position as well, because the decisions have to be taken in such a way that sometimes it will really matter that they are in a good influencing position. So good sponsor, a good influencer in that sponsor, and more importantly, I think you have to do your part as well. So sometimes it's not so much about what the sponsor alone can do. Your credibility matters. So which means you have to do everything for you to be able to really demonstrate, that figuring it out mindset, or the ability to raise up your hand and say, yeah, I know this, I don't know this, but I'm going to figure it out. And I think that figuring out will require a lot of mentors. So I'm clearly distinguishing where a sponsor has to help and where a mentor has to help. You really will need a lot of mentors around you for figuring out things. And there was this once a situation for me where I had to take up a role, and that was not a role that will come naturally to me. And first of all, I was even shy. And I was even wondering, like Sylvia said, can I even do it? It's a very important strategy role for the enterprise business unit. And 3 days I sat on it without knowing that am I ready for it or not. Exactly what she said. Fourth day, I felt like nothing doing. You know what? It's either with me or it's not with me. I'm going to just give it a try. So I walked up to the CEO's office because I had to make a pitch. I had to make a pitch. I had to present myself. And here are the three reasons. And obviously, you're going to have a lot of uncomfortable questions that somebody is going to ask you. So you got to prepare yourself. And there is only so much you can prepare. There are things you will not know. You're going to say very honestly, I don't know this answer, but I think I will figure it out. So, of course, yes, I did all of that with a lot of fear, ambiguity, lack of confidence, moved into confidence. Then I think when I really did it, looking back after, I just felt so good about myself. I'm glad I did it. I got the role. Not only I did the role, I think people are remembering me for that role for what I've done. So I think all of those motions are very important. So sponsor in a right perspective will be important. mentors to carry you along for skill that you have, for credibility that you have, for a skill that you can build. I think all of that is going to be very, very critical. So, in my mind, I think they have played a huge role, including Sylvia, who is right here, who influenced me to really take on this board journey and things like that in particular position of this network and particularly in that space. So I think we really have to care for each other and really build on that. So to me, I would put that as top notch requirement for somebody who really wants to be in a leadership or executive leadership or board roles, Neelam.
Thank you, Shanta. I really appreciate it. You know, what hit me most is like you need to have a sponsor who is going to talk for you when those discussions are being made. And that's why it's very, very important for us to speak what we want to. And that's where I'll come to you, Sylvia. You said, you know, we need to have the visibility, we need to have the network. Now, many people, even in the chat, are asking, how can we build that network and the visibility if we are aspiring for the board opportunities? So, do help them understand what are those forums, channels, or you know, how can they do that? Because we know that this will help it. So, would like to hear. In fact, these are some of the live questions our viewers have asked him.
Well, actually, there are many ways. We at Divershefy, we have some specific ones. For example, we do podcasts with our members. We have speaking engagement in different ways at International Women's Day or other opportunities. And also, I think what is important is that everybody recognizes they have to present themselves as thought leader. That can also be through blogs. That can be through LinkedIn posts. Original LinkedIn posts can be also creating visibility for you as a thought leader. Like a top LinkedIn voice can be something powerful, right? Specifically if you're trying to be on a board. So these are kind of visibility measures. Different organizations offer different things, but I think find your own way of how you create your own voice and how you create your brand. Honestly, it's a brand building. It is, especially if you're talking about listed companies, you really need to build a brand. So they would be willing to, because what they're looking for is they are looking for a brand themselves, right? They want to up the value of their board. So if you are somebody who brings a value, so for example, we had Raj Kapoor, who is he's a blockchain alliance chair. So he's very famous in the tech world for blockchain and these kind of things. So he's a brand. He's a brand. He's like somebody who's really carved out a niche for himself. He's on 200 boards. I mean, it's not all board of directors, it's also advisory boards, many advisory boards, but he's a brand and he's known in the space, right? So, for example, he gave us 25 strategies to join boards. Okay, there's a whole masterclass we have done. There's a workbook he has generated for us. Anybody who's wants to join Divershefy, this is all available. There's so many ways how you can actually make it happen. But again, you have to be willing to put in the time. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to be willing to be on a journey. And Shantha is on that journey, right? So there's an actual engagement that you need to do. It's not something like, when you're trying to learn speaking, you're not going to be the best speaker on the first day. You actually have to put in the work to learn how to speak and to train and to rehearse. And similarly for the board roles, you actually have to put in the work. So I think that is you have to actually do the work to promote yourself. We're here to help you. We can do it, but you need to also engage in the process.
Thank you, Sylvia. In fact, one of our viewers has asked if you can give us a step-by-step process. And sometimes I feel it's not only the step-by-step process following, but there is a lot of effort, which you rightly said, that you need to give the time effort, your skill learning, your networking, your visibility. So it is a combination of all this. There
I,
is not a black and white written, okay, you do this and then do this. So this
I
is
think
what I,
maybe
yeah.
no, Neelam, if I may just add, because somebody asked you that question as step by step. I think the very first aspect is definitely be active on LinkedIn, right? It's a professional network. All of us are there as a professional world. Be active on LinkedIn and make meaningful comments or meaningful thought papers or meaningful thought capital. not like randomly, okay, my mom is here, my dad is here, and stuff like that. So I'm also going to be very blunt in some of those aspects. I think it's very important. Be very active and be very thought provoking and be very I think that's very, very important. LinkedIn is a very professional network. I think is a great starting point. I think many of us who are in the technology world or manufacturing world or healthcare world, wherever we are, there are enough industry and technology events. So if you take manufacturing industry, I mean, there is consumer symposium, there is Mobile World Congress, there is technology events. Take efforts to be part of it. Take efforts to really be there, be active. There are enough speakers who come from varied, leadership and boards. They come and speak on different topics. I think it's extremely important to take that effort and be there in some of those events by design, including what Sylvia just spoke about, right? So the board stewardship huddles, the Divershefy podcast networks. So there are some very meaningful engagements like that, which I think is very active and important. I think the other aspect is really to make sure that your capability is something that is very distinctive enough, and I think that's something known to people, right? See, somebody will want you only when they find something is distinctive enough and they really can bring that value into the table, right? So make sure that that brand is getting built, that you are somebody distinctive, and that brand map of yours is making you distinctive. And I think that is something very, very critical and important. And you cannot just build it like Sylvia said. I mean, you can't just build it on one fine day. You have to build it over the time on variety of those distinctive features. So maybe if that helps between what Sylvia said and what I'm sharing, hopefully there are some good steps, good, brilliant basic steps, I would say. I mean, there is a lot more that all of us can do a lot more, but at least they are good fundamental foundations for people to move forward.
Thank you, Shanta. I believe our live audience question has also been answered through this. In fact, both the networks and also the step by step part that has been asked. But I'll come to you, Shanta. It's like so we talk about the visibility and the network part. I would like to talk more, and you touched base, in fact, this point from the capabilities part. you know okay, there is a visibility, there is a network that we have, but from a capability perspective, individual capability perspective, how do you, I mean, and you can, I would like to in fact hear more of the examples from your personal journey that will help people to understand it better, how you differentiate to, from the people who reaches to the boardrooms. So what are those differentiating capabilities of those people who reach the boardroom, so that our viewers can also learn, and they can help work on their own development part on those who are aspiring to reach the boardrooms.
See, I think my own journey, I think, has given me three distinctive capability learnings, and thereby, that also became what people have seen me out of. I think very first, I think, is all about client first mindset. I think end of the day, it doesn't matter what role you're in. You're in a senior leadership role, you're in an executive role, you're in a board role. They're all here to serve a community or an industry or a business. So understanding clients and understanding the problems that you have to solve for clients and the signature issues that you're solving for, I think is a huge learning for me personally. Growing into the journey, that was the first hit of lesson. Who are you trying to solve the problem for, and have a pretty good understanding of the client from an industry context and associated technology which can help solve the problem. So I would say, I think the first and foremost, my lesson learned, I think, in the journey that I've had, is really that client context and making sure that you're understanding that industry and the client problems well, so that you're able to articulate what are you solving for and how are you solving for, whether it is with technology or otherwise. I think that's my first lesson learned, which I think has stayed on with me as much as from that first year where I entered into my career till today. So client first is absolute important learning. The second aspect that is very critical as we move into the boardroom is clearly strategic acumen. I think our ability to handle conversations at very different levels. There are decision points, there are challenges, there are issues which you have to solve for enterprise, which you have to solve for the industry, which I think is very, very critical. So strategic acumen, in terms of enterprise thinking, in terms of systems thinking, in terms of making sure that you're really leading the way strategically as a future forward, because you're making decisions for tomorrow, right, than today. So it is extremely important in the board and in the leadership, you have that ability to be able to have that strategic acumen from a future forward mindset and thinking. I think that I would say is a very, very critical attribute, the future forward mindset and future forward thinking. The other aspect is very, very important in active listening. I think that's my biggest lesson. I think across the various roles I've had, whether it is client facing roles, whether it is transformation roles, whether it is mergers and acquisitions, whether it is sometimes you've just walked into a complex problem without knowing what's the answer I'm going to give this customer. You really need to have that mindset that whatever I do, I will figure it out along. Now, whether it is your peers, whether it is team, whether it is clients with whom you innovate, I think that figure it out mindset and learning, active listening, learning is going to be key. I think that has helped me immensely in not knowing that every answer I should know or every problem I should have an answer for the customer. I can always go back and say, hey, you know what, here is something I'm thinking like this, but I will always go back and figure it out and bring it back to you. So that active listening and the ability to say an answer which is truthfully there, sometimes an answer to say, I don't think it's a good idea for us to do it. I think for both, I think it's very, very important. The other dimension I would really say, I think at a board level, right, it is all about board relationships. So stakeholder relationships, understanding the stakeholders, understanding each other, and that relationship, I think is going to be very, very important. Even in clients, when we even win large deals, we always say, the relationships come first and the trust comes first before anything else. So I think that's not something you can win in a day. You need to work on it very sincerely, very, very, importantly, right? And I already talked about the capability earlier also. It's not like you're going to be on the table just because you're a wonderful speaker, you're a great orator, you know all the right words that you have to speak. In fact, I keep telling in my office, I'm a public school studied person, and I know only as many words that I know. But I think so what is very important is, I think the ability to have that very open learning mindset and be able to figure out when things are sometimes not in your way. I think today the world is really with so much complex problems to solve for. I think we say VUCA, we say BANI, we say so many things today that it is so much non-linear that today in the boardrooms we are making decisions for an uncertain world. So how confident are you and how authentic are you in making certain decisions which probably you're not certain of, but you still have the confidence to think that, yes, I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to try it out, and I'm going to do this. So, in my mind, very strongly strategic acumen, base credibility of your expertise absolutely matters. Otherwise, you're not even going to be on the table. I think your credibility of what you bring as a skill absolutely matters. And then, the active listening and figuring it out mindset and bringing it all together, be the you, because people can see you, people can just see it through, right? We are just talking right now, the three of us seeing to each other. I think you can see through me what I am and what I'm not. So the authentic you is the what that you should hold on to you. So while all of those are very important attributes, the authentic you really has to play a role, because there are times I've told good to a client that yes, move forward with this business. There are times I've told customers I don't think it's a good idea to move forward with this business. So it is very important because the clients can see it through, everybody can see it through. So I would kind of underline that point that authentic you is going to be very, very important. I will definitely look for qualities of these aspects which are very, very important.
Thank you, Shanta. So what I understood is mindset and authentic you is very, very important. And this mindset has to have a future forward thinking mindset, a positive mindset. And being you is very, very important because nowadays, and I wanted to say that when I go on LinkedIn, I see many people writing all we are doing transformation, we are doing all that. And that is where what has been happening is their originality is getting missed, and that's why it's very, very important. You said, because it's a professional network, people are going to understand like what exactly what you stand for, and
Yes.
that is the authenticity you need to bring in what you are writing or what you are describing about yourself. Because it's just that it is a fab to use, okay, using the buzzwords and then highlighting. I think that doesn't help much on the longer run. This is what is my understanding out of the whole crux of the discussion that we had it. I'll go to you, Sylvia. In fact, so we talked about more from the personal and individual side, but from the organization side, when organizations are looking to have women on the board, what are some of the skills, experiences they are looking to, in these individuals to be board ready? Like you are training, or there are a lot of women getting, through the Diversify forum in the board. So what are some of the, and many of the, I should say, organizations are reaching to you, and you must be having those discussions. So if you would like to highlight some of those points, so that at least we understood individual, now we wanted to understand from the organization's perspective.
Yes. So obviously, when they come, they first are describing the kind of subject matter expertise or functional expertise that they, or industry expertise that they are looking for. Obviously, that's, critical and important. Sometimes they look for lawyer, they look for a finance person, they look for marketing person, they look for certain industries. Obviously, if they're in the metal industry, they would look for somebody who has experience in that industry. So these are all, certain factors that play into the picture. But then, even if you have all these criteria, there's still other elements that are then come into the picture, specifically when you have the interview, which have to do with, as Shantha said, and we've said before, listening, really listening to what the other person is saying. And in the interview, in the board interview, that will be something they will notice or recognize if you are able to carefully listen and respond to exactly what they're asking you, right? So a way to present yourself that is in the context of who are you talking to. So the people skill, the understanding how do you approach people is incredibly important in the interview process, and also a skill that you really need on the board. I had in the podcast recently Angelika Adamski, who is a chairperson of international boards. And the interesting thing is, she said the most critical part of being a chair of a board is the capability to listen and the capability to bring people together. So the people skill is actually the highest skill in the board. The capacity to understand other people, to engage other people, to bring them together, to bring them to consent. That's actually something you need to learn if you want to be a chair. So not everybody wants to be a chair, but what I'm trying to say is that the skills, you have to have your subject matter expertise skills, no question. But then you also have to develop your soft skills, your emotional intelligence, your way of speaking, your way of connecting with people. You have to be, to some degree, you have to be an extrovert to engage with other people and really try to get them to collaborate, and also for you to understand what is their need and understand, different people have, if you're together in a room with 8, 10, 12, sometimes more board members, you need to understand how to negotiate. You need to understand how can we create win-win situations, right? These are all skills you can actually learn. So there's a lot of skills that you need to learn when you want to join a board. It's not just the subject matter expertise, but it is a baseline, right? So what you learn in the when you do the MC8 is more practical knowledge that you do need to have. You need to understand the balance sheet, and you need to understand some legal terms, and you need to understand what it is to be on a board of directors. But that is just the baseline. From that baseline, you have to build the other skills that actually get you into the board and also keep you on the board, because these are different skills.
Thanks, Sylvia. So I understood is, other than the technical skills that you need to understand from the finance, legal, and other perspective, is very the most important skills are the people skills, and that's important for everybody, because that's the prime skill that the organizations are looking at. In fact, there are some questions here, and I don't know, Sylvia, whether you have observed any differentiation between the different sectors hiring for the board positions, like manufacturing or the finance or others. Have you seen any other, any particular this thing that you wanted to highlight, or what we just spoke about, that okay, with technical people skills are the priorities across the sectors? It's not that somebody coming from manufacturing board positions are looking, I know they might be looking for relevant experience into that sector, But other than that, I believe is the people skills which tops us. This is what I wanted to answer to the question that's been. But if you have anything to be added or your observation, please do add up.
Yeah, I think one thing that I don't think it's so much manufacturing or other industries, but what you see is manufacturing. There might be more family owned manufacturing businesses. Okay. And the family owned businesses are very different than publicly held businesses. Publicly held companies operate quite differently also on the board than family run businesses. So if you are in a manufacturing and you're in a part of a family owned manufacturing and you are part of the board there, it's quite different than the board of a public listed companies. Also because the liability is very different in a public listed company, right? So working with a family business, you have to be very attuned to what's happening in the family, right? That's very important if you're part of that environment. In a public listed company, it's quite different, right? The family dynamics are usually not there anymore once the company goes public, or at least they kind of fade out to some degree. So rather than manufacturing or finance industry or other industries, I think you need to see what kind of family, what kind of company it is, which has more an influence. But obviously, in manufacturing, they often or usually ask for manufacturing experience in that specific industry. Like we have manufacturing in metal industry, then they're asking for somebody with experience in manufacturing metal industry, right? So that's very specific.
Thank you, Sylvia. So I hope that question is also answered. Now I have a question to both of you. So and maybe Shanta, I'll go to you first. So every organization has DEI policy, but we still lack women or gender diversity in the boardrooms. What's your experience or what's been your observation?
Yeah, yeah. No, in fact, I'm. That's why I said very glad that you're taking this initiative of this 1 million women. So I'm so happy to hear that from you. I think, Neelam. So I think, see, I had the opportunity also to lead inclusion and diversity in one of the very large, organization in the journey. Um, First of all, I was a business leader, and somebody told me, Shanta, as a business leader, we want you to drive inclusion. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. All I know is business, sales, and growth, and everything else. And what am I going to do here? But I tell you, I think the way it transformed me personally, first of all, right? I think it was all about ensuring how can inclusion play a role in business? How can inclusion play a role in driving innovation? How can inclusion be a conversation with clients so clients see who we are in terms of the values that we bring to the table and how we are seen holistically and how we are seen cross border? All of these attributes played a huge role and a difference to me when somebody asked me to play inclusion. First, I wanted to honestly admit I was on the other side of the fence, or at least somewhere there. But I think when I was asked to lead as a business leader, what it helped me to personally transform, and also the opportunity to then transform for different things. So one of the things that was also very critical was to, as a part of that role, the opportunity was to also create, leadership programs, architecture programs. If you see in information technologies, just as an example, women architects are very, very select. The CTOs and the technology architects, very select. You can probably pick a handful. So one of the things we had done was to really put together a very focused intervention program on making sure that we are creating women architects. In fact, to the point that I think the program became so successful and so good that it not only became a program of ours, it became a program of some of our partners. So the partners wanted to join along and really activate, to the point that there are a couple of women who are actually probably top 5 in the world on leading some of the very strong technology architecture today. So just giving you an example on the length and the yards it can go to when it comes to some of these structured intervention programs. So in my mind, I think first is inclusion or DEI, I think should not be done for an index or for a quota or for a percentage or whatever else it is. I think it should be truly done because you can actually change conversations in a right perspective. You can really change conversations with customers. You can really transform growth. you can transform, the organization from a very true diverse organization and all of that. So I think the first and foremost in my mind, my own personal lesson, and thereby I'm really sharing that with all that honesty, is it starts with you. It starts with you for you to do whatever you have to do on DEI. So that goes for every leader who has an opportunity to make a difference, every leader who can actually make a difference to influence. So I think it starts with you. I think that's the first accountability. The second thing is very structured intervention programs. It doesn't happen just off the cuff. Sometimes picking women, especially in manufacturing, the core engineering skills people, or plant operations women, or smart manufacturing women, today technology is a great equalizer. In fact, it's an accelerator. I would not even say equalizer, I would even say accelerator. I think it's a huge opportunity for women to really lead on. So I think in that context, I think the it is very, very critical to create those smart intervention programs. But you need sponsors who really make radical steps, not like, yeah, yeah, okay, let's do these programs and let's figure out what happens. No, you really have to put women in those roles. So it means you got to have bolder sponsors who really have to put women in those roles, whether they have been there before or not. So it's extremely important as leaders, as boards, we need to understand this first, that this needs a little different equation, not like, yeah, let's put the program, let's see what happens, women will come, there is a pipeline issue. Yeah, go look for people, go look for the women. Don't just come and tell me. I've had enormous hiring conversations where people will come, Shantha, you know what, you're asking for this skill, but we don't find women in the industry. Shantha, no, you've not looked deep enough. Go look for it deep enough. Today, the women economics in the industry is not that bad. Women are there. You just have to make your efforts to really make that extra effort, make that extra mile to spot them, bring them to the limelight. And I think it's an onus on many of us as women leaders and also as leaders. I'm not going to say women leaders or men leaders. I think it's an onus on us that we need to take that extra mile to find those women and put them on, whether it's on this program, or more importantly, I would say bolder role model is about really putting women on those roles. I've had that privilege and opportunity of leaders who put me onto roles that I've never done before. I did inclusion. I just gave you that example. So I was asked to lead strategy. I had an opportunity to lead business units I've never done before. I think I had an opportunity to lift a few more women like that. Right. So I think we do have an opportunity to really have bolder sponsors who will role model the action, not keep on talking about there is pipeline gap, there is pipeline gap. I think in my mind, it is not there. Look more, look deep. You will find women, and there are women who are very, very rock solid in what they want to do. I feel many women are already ready in terms of taking these board roles or probably even doing board roles. Just look deep enough, be the bolder sponsor to put them on the role and make sure they get through successful, right? So you look at N. Kamath, right? I think one of the names that just comes to my mind in the industry, everybody knows him, right? N. Kamath is always somebody knows him as a sponsor who has just created CEO of factory like anything, right? You can spot 10 to 15 women in the industry who are so visible as his as he being the sponsor, and there are times he has done that, and like all names, right? Chanda Kochar, or you can name any names, it comes to you. How do you create more such visible sponsors who are really very candid, who are bold, and taking that steps for giving that access and opportunity for women? Because right now I feel that is where most women are. Women are there, women are ready, women are ready to take many bolder decision roles, many bolder leadership roles. They've been there, done it at home and many more places. What is needed is today bolder sponsors to make that action very concretely, to put them in the roles and make it happen. Everybody will learn and fail. It's not like everybody will be on the first go. Look at this cafe coffee day lady, the Mallika. I think, I mean, as I'm speaking to you, I mean, hers is, I mean, like 7,000 crore debt. She has not run away. She stood there, turned around that business on profitability, turned around the business for governance, turned around the business for risk management, turned around the business for decisions that she had to take. And yes, it's not still solved yet, but she is there, standing there boldly and making it happen. So we also need, bolder women being there, bolder sponsors, bolder women who are ready to make that change or ready to make that leap and make it happen. So those are some steps I would think. So I'm not in favor of anybody talking DEI on paper and like all of those, like let's get some good index done and let's get some metrics done. I think I'm sure if there are people who have seen me leading DEI in the few organizations that I've been part of, I'm sure they will all be smiling because they've heard this from me. It should be truly for the right purpose, right discipline, because we have an opportunity to do so. India is at a beautiful place. The Make in India and the manufacturing opportunity from 17-18%, you said, Neelam. India's vision is to move upwards of 25% and more. I mean, how can you not have a talent economics which can beautifully transform that journey for us? And there is so much of the talent that we can amazingly take it forward together. So, to me, I think opportunity is shining bright. We just need bolder sponsors to make it happen. I think onus is on all of us also to lift as you rise each other.
Thank you, Shanta. You said it so strongly and so beautifully that more than the policies, we need action. Action in concrete, action not only on paper, but action in real. There
Yes.
are women who are ready to take up the positions. We need stronger sponsors to trust and believe on them that they can do it. And you rightly put up some of the examples. They have already doing it. So this is what I believe the message to the organizations also. Don't only restrict on the policies on paper. Please act. And that's very, very important to have more and more women participation in the workforce in any sector.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you, Sylvia. I have asked the same question. Now I'll ask you more from the, the outer perspective of it. That what's your views on that from the policy side, why we are still lacking this? I mean, we are still from 28%, like globally it is 28% boardroom representation. In India, it is 17, 18%. The thing is, this 17% has also come because there is a board mandate to put up women in the boardroom. But as I was telling, that there are only 5% CEOs, and for the listed company, it is even lesser than that. The point is that because of a mandate, they're still they are getting hired, but the executive powers are still it's not there. So, wanted to understand from you is why do you feel that there is still this gap, and what from an organization like we have heard, Shanta, if there is anything addition you wanted to add up onto that.
So one thing I can say for sure, it's not the lack of qualified women, because organizations like yourself, WIMA and Divershefy, are proving that there are many, many very qualified women, many qualified women in manufacturing, many qualified women in many different areas. So it's not a lack of women. It might be the lack of visibility of the women, but it's not a lack of women. So the question is, what is it then, right? So obviously, it's a willingness to actually have diversity and a willingness to make the effort, as Shanta said, to actually look for the candidates, even if they're not like standing at your doorstep, right? You might need to make a little more effort. But the policies are also an issue, because which of the policies are really effective, and have you checked the effectiveness of those policies, and are they actually lived? Because you can have policies and nobody's living by them, right? So, for example, when we say we want to hire X% women, and then, well, we didn't find the right candidate, as Shanta said, we didn't look deep enough, we didn't find the right candidate, so we're taking a man. Or even within the organization, if you have somebody moving up to the next level, right? I hear so many stories that women who were outperforming their male colleagues did not get the promotion simply because they didn't speak up strong enough for themselves. Okay. They didn't actually, present themselves in an audacious way like the men did. And, the men usually apply when they have 50% of the qualification, and women with 98% are still hesitating because this 2% are missing. So the women inside the company also need to speak up. They need to know about the openings. This is where the network comes in. They need to know about it. They need to have sponsors to talk about them, but also they need to have the confidence to say yes, definitely, absolutely. In terms of policies, so one thing I think we learned from Europe, and since I've been in Europe a lot, is you do need to have quotas. I know there's a whole discussion, quota, non-quota. Ideally, we shouldn't need them. But the truth is we do need them. If we wouldn't have even a quota of one person on the board, we would have even less women, in the boards. In my opinion, India should move to 3 women on boards or a certain percentage. In Europe, it's usually 30%. Some have 40%.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, France is doing really well. I must say, I'm really surprised about France. It's fantastic in terms of diversity. They have a lot of women on boards. They have a lot of women in C-suite. And part of the reason they do is because companies mandate, or the government also mandates, that the leadership be held accountable. So if, for example, the remuneration or at least the bonus of the C-level executive depends on meeting the diversity goal, you see change very fast.
Yeah. Agree.
Because if the CEO's bonus is dependent on him having 30% of women in C-level and board level, he will make sure, or she will make sure, that those women are there. So these are very effective measures. And that's a policy measure, right? Policy outside from the government, requiring that percentage, but also policy inside to make the remuneration or the bonuses dependent on achieving those goals. And when it comes down to that, change happens very fast.
And you lead by example, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Totally.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. I believe, in fact, Santa, when you were saying this, there is a question which has come into the live feed, that how should we find such bold sponsors?
Yes. How should we find such good sponsors? No, I think, see, I guess, like Sylvia said, right? I think we have to look for, we have to be on a constant lookout, right? There is nothing called somebody is going to just come to you like an angel. Of course, a day might happen like that. There is a miracle that can happen, but I think we need to constantly, like Raj, for example, like I'll just take that example, what she said, right? So Sylvia had an opportunity and she kind of brought in him as a speaker and we kind of connected. And you know what? She actually gave us a very nice, delicate message, which some of us picked it, maybe. I don't know, some of us may not have picked it too. She said, hey, you know what? If you want to connect and engage with him, you should feel free to do it. Now, I'm in constant touch with him. He went to the point of sharing his number and mobile, and I'm like constantly in touch with him for many other things and things like that. So I guess it is about making sure you're very active, you're very intentional about the steps that you're making and the connection that we are creating. Like, for example, Neelam, today you've created this network, right? So I get to know you today through Sylvia, right? So there's this connection we are making, and there's always going to be that kind of a network. And through that, you will find a sponsor with whom, we are kind of connected and move on. And maybe sometimes it's also about, one of the things I learned was, it's not like, okay, I'm just going to go and tell somebody that, hey, I'm board ready, so take me. No, that's not the way it's going to happen, right? Yes, you should definitely voice out to say that I'm board ready, but you should also be open to kind of talk about, hey, you know what, how about me shadowing with you on a board as a observer, or how about me shadowing on certain opportunities so I can learn the wheels on how this works, or how about me coming on to a particular board meeting and just listen and see how this committee happens. So I guess there are also ways you kind of go and network with someone. You don't become like, okay, I know now Neelam, so let me ask her tomorrow, okay, Neelam, give me a board role tomorrow. That's not the way it will work, right? It has to be a win-win for both of us. And I need to find you equally, somebody relevant and important to have you on the board. And also there is a journey to get through. So in my mind, for us to get to a board sponsor, continue to actively be on these kind of networks for us to be able to get to know more people, be bold enough to reach out, be in connection with them, be in talk with them, follow them, interact. Sometimes it's not so much of straight away saying, okay, hey, you know what, when you have a board role tomorrow, give it to me, but rather take a shadow position, take an advisory position, take a learning position. I think those things eventually get you there. And like Sylvia beautifully put it, it is a journey. So it is not going to happen day after tomorrow. It sometimes could be a 6 month, it could be a 1 year, but it is a confidence journey. It's a confidence for you. It's a confidence for the, whoever is an organization who wants to work with you. And then I think it takes on from there. I hope to an extent I've possibly helped.
Sure, thank you, Shanta. In fact, I would like to summarize it because we are having the last 4 minutes of our hold this discussion. So what we when we started with Sylvia, this is where we understood about having a right, part of the right network, having a right visibility created for you, and then having those confident that yes I am, and also speaking about having that visibility and speaking about that yes I would like to, because many a times as a woman, I have also seen, and even during my early career, we don't speak, we expect that the people will understand, but it's better to express.
Yes.
Then, Shanta, you said it. Yes, we need to have, the capabilities, not only the technical, but also the people capability that's are very, very important across the industry. You need to be board ready. So it's not that only that, okay, you have to go and tell the people that I'm board ready, but people has to understand. You need to have right mentors and very strong sponsors to talk for you when those decisions are getting made. And that's what I believe the people who are listening to us, these are some of the things that will help you to make board ready, that will help you to get recognized, to become a board member, and keep on working on yourself, because that's the only mantra on improving yourself. But again, going back to both of you, last 2 minutes, what is that you'd like to summarize, or as a message to the people who are listening to us today, what that they can do more in addition to what we have discussed, or any last message that you wanted to give it to those women or men who are listening to us, so that they can achieve this senior leadership position or become a board member. And that's what I would like to hear, and even our viewers would like to hear from both of you. Very quick, this is the fire.
Who should start?
Yes.
So maybe, see, I think we have spoken a lot of messages. So I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways there. But if there is one thing which I have not spoken and probably I'll mention is if we are all already in leadership positions, I think it's a responsibility on all of us to create a ripple effect. So I think it's important that if you are in a position where you are able to influence or you're able to create a talent, my suggestion and a recommendation and a responsibility would be to kind of be that lift as you rise or a ripple effect that you're able to create. So it really helps you. There's leakage and all that thing doesn't happen, but you're doing whatever you can do in your bit to make it happen. I think that will also play a very critical role on how you are seen as a leader, how you are seen as a person who can represent in the board, because in a board you have to represent across all interests, and it has to be a board that really works as a strategic asset. So in that lens, I would probably think that is one dimension which I don't think I've particularly mentioned. Lift as you rise, ripple effect is very important. Yeah.
So the one thing I would like to add is, in the Raj Kapoor session, he said, you need to be a problem solver, which means find ways to help people who are in board roles or C-level roles, but specifically board roles, to solve problems. You don't have to be on you don't have to be on a board. You don't even have to be on an advisory board, but you can be an advisor and you can be somebody supporting them in solving a specific problem that this company or this board has and needs to solve. Problem solvers are those who cannot get on the boards. If they know you can solve their problems, can be in risk management, can be in all kinds of areas, right? AI related or not. But there's so many different areas where you can bring value. Whatever that value is that you are able to bring, find companies that you can solve problems for. And you show them you can solve the problems. And that's when they will become interested in you. So I would like to make an offer to the WIMA community. This Raj Kapoor session, we have the recording, and I would like to offer that as a gift, so to speak. There's 25 concrete steps, 25 strategies to get onto boards. I'll share the link with you, Neelam, and you can share it with your community. They can watch this session for free. I think it's a fantastic session, and it would really help anybody who's serious about getting onto boards as a first step. And then if there's more interest, please do join Divershefy. For those who are serious in getting onto boards, we're here to help.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for this. And we are going to share through our Viva platform about on this talk show that Sylvia is going to share. do go through this. In fact, even this whole discussion is LinkedIn Live is going to be there to all the viewers who could not watch it live, but it is there on the YouTube and both on the LinkedIn channel for the WIMA. Thank you to both of you. I believe it's not only our viewers, even I had my own set of learnings, and appreciate both of you coming here and talking about this. And I believe these are some of the learnings that we have learned through the process of this journey that we have gone through. And we really want those people who are starting their journey or who are in the middle of their journey to learn through our experiences. It was fantastic talking to both of you, Sylvia and Janta, and thank you for coming here and sharing your views. And I hope our viewers must have learned a lot from this session. If there is anything that you have any questions to our viewers, you can still put it into our feed, and we would be able to answer you offline. Thank you again to both of you. We will
Thank
end
you.
this.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Neelam. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sylvia. Gratitude to both of you. Thank you. Take care all.
Thank you. Bye bye.